Morning. Hi, I am Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes this morning, and we are loving my veteran. How are y'all this morning? Let me get this out of the way here. I'm sorry. I want to say good morning. Thank goodness the Thanksgiving holiday is over. It's been a weird week with Thanksgiving kind of falling in the middle. So I want to take a few minutes to kind of bring everybody up to speed on what we're doing here. This week we're going to do a series, If They Love Me, Why? I think that's a big question that a lot of us have. Um, is we tend to be the brunt of so much that goes on. Like, so if you love me, why are you doing this to me? If you love me, why do you say hurtful things? If you love me, why do you distance yourself from me? If you love me, why do you say you want a divorce? Why do you push me away? Um, so we really need to address some of those issues because they're questions that I see all the time and things that I think really need to be resolved as far as that goes. So we're going to talk about that a little more at length in just a minute. But let me kind of bring you up to speed on where we are. I took the weekend off, yay! So no newsletter went out, but it will go out today. If you have not gone to the website at www.lovingmyveteran.com, please do so and subscribe so we can get you the newest newsletter. We have a lot going on with the holidays. The holidays are tough. COVID has made it even worse. So we're going to try to do some things that you can include your veteran in, give you some great ideas and some insights. But we're going to do some. Good morning, Michelle. We're going to do some insights and just fun things for the holidays. So everybody, I believe it is December the 10th. That will be our regular Thursday night Let's Talk Zoom meeting. Needs to go get your gingerbread kits because we're going to decorate some gingerbread houses together and kind of have a fun day as we're talking and just really get to enjoy each other's company because I think that's one thing we miss is that sense of community. So it's very important that we have that. Also, get your ugly sweaters together because we're going to have a Christmas party online, and it'll be an ugly sweater party. So we need to make sure that y'all find your ugly sweaters. I know that Michelle's other half came and asked me this morning if they had to be clean. I told him I didn't really care. I wasn't sitting next to him because it's virtual, so it didn't matter to me. It was all good. So that's kind of where we are. All right, so let's delve into this topic of if they love me, why? So today we're going to talk about if they love me, why do they say hurtful things? And where does this anger come? Because the anger tends to be projected to us. The hurtful things tend to be projected to us. Now, it needs to be made very clear that one, abuse is not acceptable ever. Okay. So, physical abuse, when you feel you are in danger, you need to get out. There are 800 numbers posted on our website to call the national hotline. Please make sure you do that if you feel that way. Two, PTSD is not an excuse for bad behavior. Okay. And I'm not saying that when you want to say bad behavior, that we should treat them like a toddler and say, this is our bad behavior mode. So we kind of need to understand that it becomes a learned experience, and when we react a certain way, and by giving in and saying, "Oh, it's a PTSD moment," we tend to allow this to go on, and it's never acceptable. Okay, so we have to come up with, first of all, understanding why they do this. There is a reason behind it. And when you understand the reason for why, then you can look at how to cope with these issues. So, um, a lot of it is communication. That is a big issue in this total scenario here. We tend to communicate differently than servicemen do. Um, when they're in country or in theater, they are given very clear directions, and their clear directions are: here's your objective, and go take care of the situation. They don't get that. Okay, boys and girls, let's sit down. Let me tell you what's going to happen. There's this little village over here, and those people are kind of mean to us, and they're going to hurt us. So we need to go stop that from happening. That's not what they get. They get this is your objective, go eliminate the problem and come back. There's no kindness in those statements to them. So, therefore, they tend to forget that when they're talking to us, there should be kindness in the statements that they make towards us. So sometimes it is very clear and cut and dry. That's number one in the objective. Number two that they go through a lot is we're going to go deal with again their sense of self-worth. So the holidays, especially, we're seeing more and more people talk about the anger, the I want a divorce, the I don't like you, the I don't love you, it's not going to work. Please put yourself in their mindset for just a little bit because it will help you understand. We can get through these relationship issues. We can get through these problems. It just takes work on both parts. The veteran doesn't see at this point that they're doing anything wrong. Okay, they don't see that. It is very hard for them to take ownership of their words and their actions. So let's step back a minute and take a look at everything we're talking about when it comes into this. When we start talking about some of these things that they do. So your veteran goes into a combat situation and they are asked and seeing things that go against the moral grain. Okay, as a typical rule, killing somebody or eliminating somebody is not necessarily acceptable in our society. It's just not acceptable. So they've been raised with certain morals and values, and why they're over there doing their job, they're doing this job, and it goes against their moral grain. Now, as the holidays particularly approach, that is a time for most Christians that we reevaluate where we are. We kind of redetermine, we hear us say Jesus is the reason for the season. And it doesn't really matter what your religious belief is. If you're Jewish, Hanukkah comes into play. And so I think the basis of most religions is kindness. And so they see that they've done something that is not kind. So therefore they don't feel worthy of this, and they're very angered by it. So morally they already feel demoralized and they feel like they've done something wrong. So now you've got these people who don't feel worthy of love. They feel like they've done something wrong. Um, they don't feel like they're capable of love. Think about this. You've just killed somebody in country doing your job, but how are you capable of love if you could do that? So, some of this anger and some of these hateful words we get back aren't necessarily directed at us, they're just directed and they come out. And because for most veterans, their social interaction is with us, we unfortunately get the brunt of it. It is just what happens. So you have to understand their mindset going into this. That's number one. Number two, when they were in service and they were in country or they were in theater, whichever the terminology you want that y'all use, or they were deployed, depending on your branch of the service, when they were in that situation, if they made a mistake, people died. Okay. If they failed to do their objective or they did something wrong, people died. Their own people, their family, their buddies, their brothers and sisters, they died. So admitting that they are making the mistake now puts them in that mindset that people die. So we have to understand that when they do something wrong, and we all do something wrong in our relationships, we all may all make mistakes. We all do that. It's a normal fact of life. It just happens. But for them to admit it is a sense of failure, and people died because of it. Okay, so understand that's the mental programming that they've been through. That's where they're at. So now we're having this conversation. We also have to understand that there are PTSD moments triggered, they have a problem, it puts them in that PTSD mindset explosion where nothing we say or do is going to even make sense to them at any point when they are having that moment. There's nothing you can say or do because they are totally focused. And um, as much as most veterans want to say, I know everything I'm saying, I know everything I'm doing, I know everything, they do not remember what is said or done during that PTSD moment. They are so focused, it's almost like an out of body experience for them. So, but in general conversation, so now we're going to go back and say, I don't like it when this happens. And what do we hear? For me, it's Carl is really big about me having doubt. Well, my downtime is not the same as his. So, what do I get as a result? I get, you should have, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done this. I tried to tell you this 5 days ago. I did this, I did that. And all of a sudden, I feel attacked. I feel like what he is saying to me is physically attacking me. And so now it's hateful and it's hurtful. But what I had to learn was that isn't what he was necessarily saying. Where we would come across and say, honey, I've noticed this over a little bit, and it just seems like this is happening. And I know that you want to focus on this, but there's just a lot of time when I see that you're tired. Okay. We don't get that. I get, well, you need to not do this and you need to not do that. And you're spending too much time doing this and you're not focusing enough on this. So for me, it's a list of my own failures. So it takes me to a place where I feel beaten down and hurt. When the reality is that's not what is being said. The reality is, I'm not being down and hurt. It's the way they communicate. So you have to understand that. Next thing is when we are angry, anybody, just the way people function, we tend to take it out on the people we love the most. It happens. It happens. We get frustrated with the situation. Something has gone on at work, something has gone on like road rage, whatever. Whatever we don't like, we read a crappy post on Facebook, we do any of that stuff. And so we see it and we tend to come home and I use the word vomit. We vomit our feelings out. I can remember when my kids were little and my ex-husband would come home and the kids had driven me crazy all day and he walks in the door and I'm like, do you know what your kids did? And so I vomited all this negativity. So we tend to take our frustrations and our anger out on the people we love the most. The difference is the way we communicate and the way a military service member communicates are so different. There's no emotion in there. It's very clear, direct word. And so that happens. The other thing is the pushing away. If they don't feel they're worthy of love, they will say things that push you away. They will say things that push you away. They get unfocused from their mission. For Carl, his mission is to protect me at all costs. So if I am distracting him from that by trying to have this emotional breakdown, crying conversation, it is distracting him from the mission. So be aware that that happens. Anger. I'm here to tell you right now, I'm investing in plexiglass, okay? Because when we get into a space sometimes, when we have an argument, a discussion that goes bad, which can become an argument in their mind. In us, we're going to have a discussion. For them, it turns into an argument, right? I mean, that's the way it works. Um, there is a lot of, and I know we've all heard it. Slamming doors happens. Um, Big about the picture, the glass in the picture breaking. Big deal. It happens at our house. It doesn't happen like it used to because we've had a very long discussion about that. And I've learned a lot of things. And I was talking to Michelle this morning, and I said, it's taken me months to learn how to negate some of this behavior. And we've worked through it together. So it's taken months. It can be done. It's not going to happen overnight. So understand that those anger moments happen. The the just flying off the handle moments happen. Well, you don't let me get out. You don't let me just call the police. You don't let me. I mean, we hear it. I mean, I can spit out these words, and every one of you can be sitting here shaking your head. I done heard. So we know now where, because we understand where the hateful comments come from. And because we understand where their anger comes from, their anger is so bottled up inside them. They're hurt, they're angry, they're resentful, not necessarily to us, but to the way they feel. Get the point that we took them to basic training, we taught them everything they needed to know to fight battles. Now they're done, and it's have a nice day, get out. And there's no explanation for what, working through what they saw and what they did and what they've been through. And there's never justification for it. For me, a lot of times I'll get angry because I have to do something that I don't want to do. I don't want to have, but there's a justification for why, you know? Hey, I don't feel like dealing with the traffic today, but we have to have groceries up in this house or we're going to starve. I mean, that there's a justification for that. For them, it was, you need to do this. No explanation, no justification. So when their anger and their rage comes out sometimes, they were never taught how to undo that. They were taught how to do that, but not how to undo that. So how do we fix that? How do we address those issues? I mean, we had this discussion. Michelle and I talked this morning, and we had this discussion. Okay, so how do we fix that? It is so easy for people to say, "Don't take it personally." There's only so much time, so many times you can hear, "You're dumb. You need to do something different. If you would have done this, I've told you that for weeks. I've been trying to tell you that for 6 months. I've done this. I've done that." That's what they're saying. I've done. And it's always directed to me that, I've done this and you haven't done that and you haven't done this. And if you would do this. So it becomes like everything is my fault. And if I would have changed stuff, things would be different. The reality is, if I changed stuff, it would be no different. It would be no different. We'd still be in this until we learn to communicate. So now, and it has taken a very long time, now it is, we don't yell. We can help if I can help it. And I'm like, stop. Do you hear what you're saying to me? And the answer typically is yes, I know exactly what I said because God knows that man can remember things that he said 6 years, 4 days, 25 minutes, and 33 seconds ago. Okay? I can barely remember my own name, but he can remember stuff, whether it happened in perception. I say perception is reality, but they have their own, people have their own reality in their head. It doesn't make it real. It's the way they perceive it, not the way other people perceive it. So how do you address this? So with him now, I sat down and I said, I always start a conversation where some behavior has to be fixed or approach has to be fixed by saying to him, okay, this happened and it can't continue like this. So tell me what I can do to make it different. Always, and only allow one thing. Always only allow one thing. Okay, so get ready for that. And I know that we want to be, what about me? Why are my feelings don't matter first? But they do matter first. And it doesn't matter the approach you take to make your feelings matter first, as long as you get there, who cares? And I know that's tough because we want to go, what about me? What about me? What about me? Because I do, you know, I have PTSD, but I always seem to have to put my moments in check to worry about that moment. Well, it's not always a PTSD moment. It is a behavior issue. It is not a bad word, so I've got to come up with a new terminology. But it's the way he acts issue. Okay, it is a learned behavior issue. It is not a PTSD moment. A PTSD moment is the trigger to the day his buddy died, the fireworks trigger, the being overwhelmed in public, the sound, the limb hitting the roof. Those are PTSD moments. Us having an argument is a relationship issue. But you got to remember what baggage they brought to that relationship and how they learned to deal with it. So I always start out with one thing that we can do to eliminate this. And I always start out. Um, we have stopped a lot of the I and made it more we, which is helped a lot. And so then what when we're going through the hurtful things that are being said, well, you should have done, or you could have done, or you should have, which makes me feel like a failure. I mean, I feel like I'm incompetent, right? It's ridiculous how I feel sometimes. I'll sit down and I'll say to him now, um, you realize when you talk to me that way and you say, well, you should have, you could have, you whatever, I feel incompetent. I I feel incompetent when you do that. And so now, when we have this and these words come out, I'm like, hold on, honey, stop. Did you hear what you said? I know exactly what I said. I know you know exactly what you said. I said, well, it made me feel this way. This is what I heard. And then it comes back usually that's not what I meant by it. I don't sugarcoat stuff. What I meant to say was, you've done a whole lot today, and I think you're a little overwhelmed, and maybe you should take a break because I see you being overwhelmed. And all of a sudden, I was like, we're getting somewhere. So that's where the hate and the anger come from. How we deal with it is one step at a time. Now, next thing I'm going to get from everybody who's listening, because I can already hear it, I hear it loudly, is if he won't talk to me anyway and we can't communicate anyway, how do we get this started? If he shuts down, how do we get this started? If he does that, how do we get this started? You have to be the one to start. Now, I will tell you from experience, the very first time you do this, it is not going to be pleasant. The second time you do this, it may not be pleasant. But when you pick your one thing, always remember one thing, anything more is overwhelming. Okay. We're dealing with people who already have a low self esteem. We're dealing with people who already feel like they've done stuff wrong. And it's hard to say, oh, they have a low self esteem because I don't know about y'all. It is, they are so. So when you have this one thing that you're dealing with, and it's gonna be tough in the beginning. You're gonna, their defense mechanism is gonna go up. Their wall is gonna go up. When you say to them, I don't like the way you talk to me because it makes me feel like this, you can't say, I don't like the way you talk to me. You better have specific examples. When you said this, it made me feel like this. Specific examples. Because now, what did you say? You didn't say, you talked to me this way and you did this and you did that because you didn't turn it around. You said, when you said this to me, I felt like this. Now it's a shared experience. It's not a you did and you did and you did, because that's what we've already heard. We've already heard the hateful things that come out of their mouth. You did this and you're a bitch and you're this and you're a C word that I don't even like, or you're this or you're that. And I'm like, stop. Okay, because that's what we've heard. So now we get this hateful stuff coming out. And when we try to have a conversation to unstop the hate, and we go to them and say, you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this and you're doing that, we're giving it back. And what are we gaining from it? The thing is if we continue to do the same thing over and over and to each other, we're not getting anywhere. So if you want your relationship to be better, we have to make a change. It is what it is. Do you want your relationship better? Then make a little change. Is it going to be easy in the beginning? Absolutely not. The first 2 or 3 months that after I did research and after I talked to people who had successful relationships, that's a key, who were successfully dealing with this. And remember, what works for me is not going to work for you completely. But when I talked to people who were getting success out of this, I started listening and I found where I was, that you have to, the key, and I will say this 1,000 times, the key is to research combat PTSD. It's not the same as regular PTSD. And if your veteran has a comorbidity like a TBI, um, depression is typically a result of the PTSD, but some of them have attention deficits. Some of them have bipolar disorders. Be careful in the bipolar disorder be, because PTSD can flip you from one side to the other. So it gives you that concept of bipolar, and it may or may not be. It needs to be professionally diagnosed. But again, you still can't allow stuff to happen. You got to be the one to make the change. You got to be the one to say, what you're saying is hurtful. And it's going to take a long time to get there. It took me months. Does he still say hurtful things? Yep. Do I say hurtful things back? Yep. But now we tend to catch each other saying it or catch ourselves saying it. And when I blurt out something hateful, I'm like, sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way. What I meant was, and he'll start. He'll say, I didn't mean it the way it came out. So that is progress. And our relationship is so much better. We had a major thing come up this weekend, a major thing that I was terrified to bring up because I knew if I did, I could see the repercussions, right? Just see. It was very interesting. The manner in which I brought it up was calm. The manner in which I brought it up was, hey, this. Now, do you understand how I could see that and how I would feel by looking at it? And then it wasn't, I didn't make an accusation. I said, what? You know, how am I supposed to feel? Explain this. And so it became a conversation. It wasn't you did, it became a conversation. And what happened was the hurt and the anger completely were gone. And after we addressed this issue, he came to me, put his arms around me, and said, I love you and I get it. That was like the biggest breakthrough for us. It was a major issue. And so we are finding that understanding is a big deal. Understanding the whys. Now, I will tell you this, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. But it's like the making excuses. Okay, so the election came. They saw things that they did to other countries happen to our country and happening to our country from the inside out. Oh, things will get better after the election, right? Good, great. Now the holidays are here, and now we're like, oh, we're dealing with the moral dilemmas. Yeah, good, great. Then January is going to come, and there's going to be the inauguration. You can't keep having the excuse for it. You have to understand why, but you can't keep having the excuse. And when we understand the why, we can get the reaction. We can get the changes, but we have to understand the why. Why are they? Because I don't believe that any of us would be with, we didn't all decide to go out and be with our veterans. Some of us married them and they didn't have PTSD. Some of us got in these relationships with them when they already had PTSD. We wouldn't be in a relationship with them. We didn't go out with a billboard and say, hey, I'm looking to live with somebody with PTSD so I can deal with the bullshit on a regular basis. We didn't do that. There was something about them that we loved, something about them that made us have a relationship, something about us that made the good. But when we've lived in the negativity for so long, we don't see the good. And so where we have to get is back to seeing the good. One step at a time, one good moment at a time. And I have, and I know we're running late, so I'll kind of wrap this up. We have this girl who I talk to on a regular basis, and I adore her, and she has a long distance relationship, and he is recently out of the service, and he's been diagnosed with PTSD, and he's a grown man, but he's living with his family. So imagine that mess going on. And she's having some issues being stressed at work and this and that and the other. And so they haven't talked and communicated like she would like, but he sent her a text. I'm sorry, I cannot, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry, I cannot be there for you right now. I am in a place I cannot be the rock you need me to be. I have to work on me. But don't ever doubt that I love you. And she was kind of, she was, what does this mean? And I said, girl, it means you should print that out and frame it. That's like the victory dance. Because he acknowledged where he really was and still said, I love you. I would like paint that on my wall. That would be the victory dance of the relationship. So again, please understand, we understand the anger, we understand the hurt, we understand the why. And if you love me, understand the why. Now we can work one step at a time on fixing the why. Because I'm telling you, they learn what love feels like again, when they learn that love is okay and that we're going to love them regardless of what they did, regardless of what they saw, we're still going to love them. It takes a lot of reinforcement, but it's worth it. So that's where we are. We will continue with the They Love Me live tomorrow. Um, there's a lot going on. I will get the newsletter out today. So if you have not subscribed, please do so. We are still doing one-on-ones. You can schedule those through Calendly or message me directly and I can put you in for one. So if you need a little one-on-one, we are still doing those. Don't forget that this week coming up tomorrow at 3 Eastern time, we have our little pop-up ladies thing, support thing going on. We do that for about an hour. I promise I'll be on time this time. I'll look at all the stuff. Tomorrow morning after our live, I won't be available for one-on-ones because me and my 4 high school friends. Girl, how long does it take? It takes a long time. It doesn't take as long, Lori, as you think. It you will start to see a change. You're going to have some argument in the beginning. You're still going to have that kind of behavior in the beginning, but it will start to subside. And the thing is that we already had that argument. So what the heck was a few more minutes of that argument to get the resolve that we need? We've been doing this. Let me just tell you. So a year ago, there was a lot of explosiveness. Maybe not quite a year ago. There was a lot of explosiveness. There was a lot of me feeling like doo doo. There was a lot of me feeling like I was hurt. There was a lot of this anger just exploding. And for about 6 months of that, I just thought, well, this is going to be my life. And then, and, um, yeah, and Lord, too, I'll tell you, the longer they've been out, sometimes the the longer they've been allowed to do this, so it becomes habit. So sometimes the longer they're out, um, will create longer to take them to re-resolve. But love, compassion, understanding, and telling them, look, we love you, and I understand your anger, but you can't. It just can't happen. So I mean that it will resolve, and it takes a while. I guess for us, we have actively been working on this for probably the last 6 or 7 months, really committed to working on this. And I saw changes probably in the first 2 weeks. You could start to see little changes. Now it's like this massive total overhaul of our relationship. Massive overhaul of our relationship. So I assure you there is a light. There is a light at the end of all these tunnels. You're not going to get run over by anything. It's not a train. It is a light, a true light. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up tomorrow morning at 10, from 10 to probably noon. I'm visiting my there's 5 of us, 4 of my closest high school friends. We have been friends for over 30 years, and we are having our own Zoom coffee. I will not be available from about 10 a.m. Eastern Time to noon Eastern Time. Um, Learning to take time for yourself is super important, so y'all make sure you do that too. More questions, message me. We can do one-on-ones. I'll do either Zoom or we can talk on the phone, whatever you need to kind of, everybody's kind of different, to kind of give you advice if you need any. We'll address some more of this, the pushing away, the not being able to commit. That's a really tough thing. I think we all go through. Hang on, I got more messages here. Girl, you were late too. It's okay. We can make sure it'll be on in just a minute. Once this is over, it'll repost itself to the group and to the thing. You can see it in probably 30 minutes in its entirety. If you need me, holla. Um, We're going to have our Christmas thing on Wednesdays. Don't forget, 10 a.m. Please go visit our friends at Behind the Service podcast for a little coffee conversation and collaboration. It is a lot of fun. There is just, again, so much going on. I'll get everything posted on the newsletter. Y'all have a blessed day. I know we went about 10 minutes over. Um, can't do this without all y'all, as I've learned so much from y'all too. You have no idea. You are my strength when he can't be, because sometimes they can't be, and sometimes it takes us talking to each other. That you're my strength. All right. Have a blessed day. If you need me, holla. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. This is Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Have a great day.